Welcome to another episode of A Fistful of Lenses. In this episode, we take a closer look at the Nikkor 105mm f2.5 AIS lens. This is the lens used by photographer Steve McCurry to shoot possibly the most famous and recognizable portrait of all time, that of the Afghan girl. A portrait that appeared on the cover of National Geographic several times. So I'm eager to try out this true legend of a lens for myself. During this review, I'll be using the lens to shoot video and stills, so we should get a good idea as to the character, strengths and weaknesses of this classic optic. And as always, the images and video will be shown in its rawest form, without any editing or colour grading. For the technically minded of you out there, the lens optical construction is 5 elements in 4 groups. It has 7 aperture blades and a closest focus of 1 meter. The lens weighs in at a substantial 432 grams, and like many of the Nikkor lenses from its time, it accepts 52mm filters. The Nikkor 105mm AIS first came to market in 1981. So what was the world like when this lens was new to buy in the shops? Well, let's take a trip together down memory lane. In 1981, Ronald Reagan becomes the 40th US President. Kim Carnett's song Betty Davis Eyes reaches number 1, and the first anti-venom was developed for the Sydney funnel web spider. That reminds me, last week I asked my daughter to pass me the phone book. She looked, smiled, called me a dinosaur and handed me her iPhone. Anyway, the spider is dead, the iPhone is broken, and my daughter is livid. Moving swiftly on, it will be interesting to see how this legendary lens performs out in the real world. And just as an added challenge, I'll be attempting to use the lens to capture some wildlife. But of course, this is outside the lens's comfort zone. A vintage, manual focus, short telephoto is hardly the perfect choice for capturing wildlife. But, well, it's a bit of fun, and we like a challenge here at Fistful of Lenses. But let's start with a subject that the lens is more suited to, that of street photography. So let's grab the Sony A7R Mark III and let's get started. So the lens is perfectly suited to street photography. Although personally I prefer using a shorter focal length, but I can see how the extra reach allows you to sit back a bit and makes the whole process of street photography a little more comfortable. So for this genre, it's really down to personal choice. Again, the lens is at home with monochrome, but what about colour? It's true we all see colour in a unique way, and each person's opinion on this is valid, as it's a subjective personal choice. Differences between the way lenses render colour are subtle, but they are there if you look carefully. And for me, it's one of the fascinations that keeps me exploring different lenses. I appreciate the differences, albeit subtle. And I find it interesting to see how this Nikkor, for instance, will render colours compared to a similar Pentax, Canon or Minolta. Of course, you could argue that there's no definitive right or wrong, no best as such. But personally, I feel this lens renders colours in a beautiful way. Reds are vibrant yet manage to stay natural looking, and blues have a calming, serene quality to them. but I wanted to take a moment to talk about the other standard qualities of this legendary optic. For one thing, the lens is sharp, very sharp for a vintage lens. And although I don't believe a lens needs to be excessively sharp to be capable of producing beautiful images or video, the inherent sharpness of this lens certainly helped with the famous image of the Afghan girl, Sharbat Gula, and those piercing green eyes. So clearly this is a lens suited to portraits. But is it just a one-trick pony? Let's use the lens in a way that most won't, and indeed I wouldn't necessarily recommend myself. Let's shoot a little wildlife footage. As you can probably imagine, this was a little frustrating and tested my patience to the limit. No fault of the lens, of course, it's just that short working distance which isn't suited to wildlife photography. However, the inherent sharpness of the lens produces a beautiful image. So what about the weaknesses of this over 40-year-old lens design? Well, even when the built-in lens shade is used, when shooting into the light, the lens will lose contrast. It's not that it's a poor performer, but something to be aware of. Also, as you can see at the end of this clip, the lens is not above producing a little flare or two. But it should be noted, I'm deliberately shooting into the light to push the lens to its limit and look for weaknesses. So to summarize, this legendary lens, which helped to make one of the most iconic and famous portraits of the 20th century, has a reputation for sharpness that is well deserved. It has a beautiful colour palette, an attractive bokeh, and exceptional build quality. But like most lenses of its age, it will lose contrast and flare when shot into the light. But as far as I'm concerned, this is a lens I'll be keeping and look forward to using far more in the future. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and ring that bell, and then who knows, maybe we'll see each other out there in the real world, snapping away happily with a fist full of lenses. Until next time, bye for now.